Over the last few nights I discussed the various different elements of the build-up to Imam al-Mahdi's government and the time period before Imam al-Mahdi appears and the conditions in which will be present before the Imam comes. And I discussed the general conditions of the people and the religious and the moral aspects of people's behaviours and in people's lives before the arrival of the Imam. And we're discussing at this stage in which the affairs of the world will be and the ways in which the world will be before the Imam decides to reappear. And today the topic which will be focused on will be the conditions, the security conditions in particular, prior to the coming of the Imam. And the purpose and the reason for discussing the security conditions before the coming of the awaited Imam is essential and it is important so that we can compare it to what we have today in order to try and get some sense of gauge as to whether the reappearance of the Imam is near, and also so that we can protect ourselves, so that we can protect our families and protect our communities based on what the Prophet and what the Imams have said. Because of all the aggression, as we mentioned, from governments which will take place in the lives of people and will infiltrate the lives of every single individual, because of the aggression of these big governments and these big superpowers across the world, the security of small governments and of weaker nations will begin to decline. And things like freedom and security to live in peace will be something which is very hard to find. In fact, it will become almost non-existent. The big powers which are dominant in the world, which you can even see today, the rise of big superpowers, will make life so difficult for countries which are deemed as smaller and weaker. And it will violate the rights of these countries and the people that reside within these countries to such an extent that they will not even be allowed the space to breathe in. This is, as we know, one of the signs for the reappearance of the awaited Imam. However, some people will say that throughout history, if you look back, there has always been the presence of bloodthirsty, criminal dictators and tyrants who have ruled over people in horrible ways and used their power to suppress them. For example, you have Genghis Khan, you have Hitler, most recently you have the criminal Saddam, who used all of their power, all of their might, all of their tyranny to inflict horrible, disgusting crimes upon the people underneath them. But when we talk about the types of governments and the types of tyrants that come before, just before the reappearance of the awaited Imam, the crimes in which these people will commit will be beyond the levels of horror, beyond the levels of terror which we have ever seen in our lifetimes. What will become common is the execution of young boys and young children, for example. You will see that these tyrants, in terms of unleashing punishment upon innocent people, will burn children and let their bodies smolder and smother in the fire and put them into burning liquids. You will see that they will try to normalize the process of cutting up humans into pieces and dismembering them as part of punishment rituals. And these are just some of the crimes in which these big, powerful governments will inflict upon the people that live under them and under the governments of other people and in other nations. And it is strange that these will be the governments that will propone themselves and declare themselves to be the beacons of human rights and of equality and of freedom. Even today, you can see that certain nations which declare themselves to be free and to give democratic rights to its people are among the most dangerous and the most prominent violators of human rights and the biggest killers which we have in the world today. And there are certain hadiths and certain narrations which explain the types of crimes, the types of punishments which will be taking place upon innocent people. However, it is not appropriate to discuss the severity of these due to the fact there are some young people. But the fact that I cannot even speak about what is mentioned in these hadith because of how gruesome they are gives us a warning about what is to come and gives us a warning about what the status will be like before the time of the Imam. However, we don't even need a hadith to talk about the horrors which will be inflicted prior to the coming of the Imam, because we have a real life example taking place today. This very day there is something taking place which mimics these narrations about the types of torture and punishment which will be inflicted on innocent people, especially young people. And the easiest example to see about how this will be in practice is if you look in Gaza right now. If you look and you see how children are being burned to death and left as nothing but molten ash. If you look and see how children are being bombed by bombs which are designed to roast them and turn them into flames, if you see the way that innocent children, babies aged 1, 2, 3 years old, are being choked and gassed to death by white phosphorus bombs dropped by the Zionists on them. By the way, these bombs which they're using on these children cause liver, kidney, heart failure. They send people into comas, and of course they result in death as well. Some people might think that the crimes which are mentioned in the hadith prior to the coming of the Imam are so distant and far away that we can't imagine this ever being a reality. But the reality is that it's happening right now in front of us. And this is a sign that inshallah the reappearance of the Imam will be soon. And inshallah we pray for it, but we also pray for an end to the suffering of these people. It is the occurrence of these actions, like what's taking place in Palestine right now, which show the importance of the government of Imam al-Mahdi and the revolution of Imam al-Mahdi, because they have said that the government of the awaited Imam will become a sanctuary. It will become a safe place for all of the people who have suffered from tyranny and who have suffered from oppression at the hands of criminal, evil rulers. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, says that it will reach the stage before the Imam comes, that the world will not end unless the time would come when, passing by a graveyard, a person would throw himself onto that dead person's grave and say that I wish I was in the place of this dead person. And this is, well, his problem is not debt or not financial problems, but the sufferings and the pressures of the day, as well as the oppression and the tyranny that that person faces. And we're seeing this today, whether it is in Gaza, whether it is in Yemen, or any other place across the world where people are being subjected to so much oppression that they look at what is going on around them and they say that I would rather be dead, I would rather not exist than have to witness what is taking place in front of me today. And nobody cares. No one in the world cares except a few free, brave spirits from around the world who have stood up in defiance of this. And as we mentioned in the other narrations, it will come a time where people will witness this oppression and they won't even object to it. In fact, they will just wish that it took place behind screens so that they would not have to witness it. This is a reality which we are seeing even today. There's another interesting narration hadith from Rasulullah. And in this hadith, he says, surely there will be a time when this ummah, day will reach night time, and people will begin to ask one another, last night, who was swallowed up by the earth? Who was swallowed up into the ground? And the people would ask each other, who is alive from this ashira, and who is dead from this ashira? Who is left? The ground has swallowed these people up. This is interesting. What does it mean by when people ask, has the ground swallowed these people up here? Who is left? What our scholars, what our ulama have said, is that perhaps this narration, which talks about people being swallowed into the earth, talks about the wars and the killings which will take place towards the end of time, towards the reappearance of the Imam, when people will begin using advanced weapons and weapons of mass destruction. With these weapons, like for example nuclear bombs, which now a lot of countries possess, a lot of evil countries possess them as well. With these nuclear weapons, every day that they are used, and whenever they are used in any time and place, the level of casualties will be so high that it will be an unprecedented scale. People will have never seen casualties as high as this before. And they have said that because of the amount of bodies which will pile up, the ground will open up and eat them. This is a depressing topic. However, it's something we need to be aware of, and it's something we need to speak out against and be insightful about. We need to use our basira to see that this is going on around us. And by the way, our ulama have also spoken about these weapons of mass destruction. They have spoken about this issue openly, and they have even gone to the extent of releasing fatwas saying that it is haram and it is impermissible to use, to own, to manufacture nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. For example, the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Imam, he says that we believe, alongside nuclear weapons, that other types of weapons of mass destruction, such as chemical, such as biological weapons, pose a serious threat to humanity. He says we consider the use of these weapons as haram and believe that it is every single person's duty to make efforts to secure and to prevent humanity from this great disaster. This is one of our Maraja, this is one of the representatives of the Imam. He says that each individual person has a duty to stand against these weapons which are being used, to stand against these weapons which are being manufactured. And by the way, some of these weapons get manufactured in Glasgow, in the river, beside the River Clyde, in Govan. And you'll see that there are some non-Muslims, some kuffar, who themselves, out of care for the world, out of care, for example, for the Palestinians, they go to these factories and they shut them down. But we as Muslims, we're silent when it comes to it. And we don't even bother to bat our eyelids. If these people are going to the extent of following the words of the Maraja, then why are we not doing it? This is embarrassing for us. And he says that we need to stop the promotion and the creation of these weapons. Why? For the preservation of life, for the preservation of humanity, to save the people which inhabit this earth. And we need to compare this warning that we have from our scholars to the warnings which we have from our ahadith and from our narrations as well. And once you do that, you will see the similarity between the advice that we are given and the rules we are given and the narrations which we find in our books. Another interesting topic regarding the time before Imam al-Mahdi is the occurrence of very sudden deaths, which become very numerous very quickly. The Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said that among the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah is paralyzing diseases and sudden deaths. He also said that Yawm al-Qiyamah shall not come until the white death occurs. And someone asked him, they said, Ya Rasulullah, what is white death? What do you mean by this? And he said, this means sudden death, this means illness. Amir al-Mu'mineen also says something similar to this, and these two narrations match up. Amir al-Mu'mineen says, before the coming of al-Qa'im, there will be the red death and there will be the white death. The white death is plague. Plague means a disease, plague means an illness which infests a person and eventually kills them. And he says the red death is from the sword. And once we look into these narrations a little bit more about red death and about white death, we have narrations which talk about contagious, deadly diseases and its relation to the reappearance of Imam al-Mahdi. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, for example, says that the Qa'im will not rise up until there comes a time where intense fear becomes dominant. And prior to this, before this, there will be contagious diseases of epidemic proportions. This doesn't mean that diseases will just be in certain countries and it will be limited to these. He says that these diseases will spread throughout the entire world to the extent where everyone is in danger from it. And what's worrying is, if you look now at recent events which have happened, most recently coronavirus, COVID, if you look at what happened in Africa with Ebola, all of these contagious diseases which are making appearances not just in certain areas of the globe but spreading throughout, so much so that big World Health Organization, for example, are putting out warnings and trying to advise people how to stay safe, calling them epidemics, calling them pandemics. These are being found in more numerous ways than prior and are affecting people in more ways than previously as well. Now, some people might come and they may say that, for example, these diseases might not be natural. They might have been created by human beings. And this is something also to factor into and to look into as well. And by the way, I'm not suggesting that, for example, COVID is something which means that Imam al-Mahdi is going to reappear because COVID became a big thing. However, if you look back at history, for example, if you look at the Spanish flu, in the 1920s, 50 million people got killed in a matter of years from the flu. At that time, surely people would have thought that Imam al-Mahdi would have reappeared. But in reality, we just need to remain aware. I'm not suggesting that the appearance of any disease is something which is going to lead to their appearance. However, we need to be aware. We need to look into these. We need to look at the causes of them. We need to analyze them. And we need to compare all of these narrations and all of what is being said by the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam into our daily lives. So, what we see from our hadiths is that prior to the uprising of Imam al-Mahdi, wars and killing will begin to engulf people everywhere. And there are certain hadiths which talk about fitna. For example, there's a hadith from Rasulullah where he talks about 4 fitnas. He says, after me, you will experience 4 fitnas. In the first one, blood will be regarded as lawful to shed and killing will increase in number. In the second fitna, blood and property will be regarded as lawful to be shed or plundered and killing and pillaging will increase in number. The first one, there's going to be lots of killing. The second one, people are not going to care about killing people and they don't care about stealing people's land. In the third fitna, the blood, the property and the honor of people will be regarded as lawful to be shed, plundered or trampled on, and apart from killing people, the honor and the dignity of human beings will not be safe. So the first one is killing. The second one is taking people's land. The third one is that people will not have any honor or dignity left after this. And the last one, which will be so intense, it will affect everyone and no one will find refuge from it. No one will be safe from this the fourth one. This fitna will spread from Sham. It will encompass Iraq and it will envelop the entire peninsula of Hijaz. The afflictions and the pain of the people, Rasulullah says, will be so intense that no one would even be able to complain. And that wherever a state of chaos or a state of madness begins to die down and begins to ease off, this chaos will find its way to reappear somewhere else. And the scary thing in regards to these, which Amir al-Mu'mineen describes, he says, finally, that Imam al-Mahdi will not reappear until 1/3 of the population of the entire world will be killed. He says Imam al-Mahdi will not reappear until another 1/3 of people will have died and the remaining 1/3 of people will survive. This is in relation to the White Death, and this is also in relation to the Red Death, which Imam Mahdi alayhi salam talks about. People will die either from the killing which takes place, from the diseases which take place, and the rest will survive. And from all of the various ahadith which I mentioned today, the following 3 points we can take from it. The first one is that before and prior to the coming of Imam al-Mahdi, unfortunately, killings will take place in very large numbers, and a lot of people in the world who inhabit this world will be killed. And the people that will be left over will be less than the number of people who have been killed. 2/3 of people will die, and only 1/3 of people will live. The second thing is that a number of the people who get killed, a large number of these people, as we mentioned, will be killed in wars which take place. So we need to be aware of the conflicts which take place, and the way in which these conflicts take place, and the ways in which they take place, and the weapons which are used in them as well. And the other ones will be killed by the contagious diseases. Therefore, we need to pay attention to all of the diseases which are taking place, to which diseases are being found in the world. And thirdly, the small number of people that will be left over, the 1/3 of people who will remain after the killing and after the diseases, it is said that these people, the majority of them, will be from among the Shia, and they will be from among the followers of the Imam, because they are the ones who will pledge their allegiance to the Imams after everything which has taken place before them. And this fact and this statement can also be found from one of the statements of Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq alayhi salam, when someone asked him how many people would be left after 2/3 of the world have been killed. Someone comes to him and they say, after 2/3 of the world is wiped out, either by killing or diseases, how many people are going to remain in terms of numbers? Is it going to be 1,000? Is it going to be 100,000? Is it going to be 10 million? The Imam didn't answer him. He said, are you not satisfied And would you not like to be amongst that remaining 1/3? The Imam says, surely you should wish to be among that 1/3 of people who survive, because that 1/3 of people who survive will be from among the followers of the Imam. And inshallah, we are lucky enough to be blessed with the reappearance of the Imam in our lifetimes. And inshallah, we are one of the 1/3 of people who remain and are able to become the followers of the Imams. And inshallah, we are the people who are close to the Imam, the ones who listen to him and are obedient to his orders. Inshallah, we are the people who are aware of the events during his revolution and aware of the events which will take place before his revolution and before his coming. And as I mentioned the other night, it is recommended by the Ahlul Bayt alayhimussalam and by the Imam to recite Dua Faraj in any position, especially in Shahr Ramadan. So inshallah we will read it just now. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. اللهم كن لوليك وحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.